poppin', everyone? Welcome into the CitrusTV studio for another episode of Beat the Bookie. I'm Max Gifford, and yes, just to get ahead of you, this bow tie is as sharp as my betting picks. People ask why I wear these, and I say, because it's stylish, and hey, it helps me not make bad bets. So if you're looking for a winning streak, I've got it tied up, literally. And here's the kicker. I'm not just the bow tie expert. I'm the first member of the class of 2026 to be on this show. That's right, folks. I'm setting the tie that others will have to follow. No pressure, right? Well, enough about fashion. Let's get down to business. It's time to beat the bookie. And trust me, I'm not here to lose. And sorry that I've overused my pun limit for the day. Someone that did come to lose last week, our dearly beloved Chloe Smars. She came up empty and putting Beat the Bookie down nearly $70. Just 1 for 6 on the week. Call that a Mark Vientos playoff stat line. If you know, you know. From reading Chloe's LinkedIn, I learned she's from Three Bridges, New Jersey, which is not to suggest she should be tossed off one of those three for a performance like that. But all I'll say is if you're gunning for the treasure and you come back to the ship $67 in debt, be prepared to walk the plank. As for how Chloe stacks up in our semester-long standings, it's pretty horrible. No ifs, ands, or buts around it. The worst host before Chloe's catastrophe was Tyler Aiken, and Chloe's showing was twice as worse than TA's tragedy. But you want to talk about a nightmare bet rotation with those other 4 in the negative. Yikes, the Chubb math does not add up. If you know, you know. Austin Barrick's the only one taller than me to be on this semester so far, still standing heads and shoulders above everybody else. You want to talk about compensation. $104? That compensates. I've got some work to do, though. Let's roll the Jerry Maguire clip.
Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money! Show me the money!
What's a better way to begin our big games than at the most recent venue to host a championship-winning game, the Bronx, where number 19 Army and number 6 Notre Dame duel it out on the diamond. It's the Catholics versus the Comrade in Arms. The problem with this game is I know the Black Knights can't match up to Fighting Irish talent-wise, so this won't be an upset win. But a 14-point spread is a lot of points. These are two teams that love to run the football, so I'm expecting a lot of longer possessions. But is it enough for me to take the points for Army? I called up my friend in South Bend, Jimmy, before this while he was on his way to the game this week, and his words verbatim: I'm usually right about when to take Notre Dame. Good enough for me. Give me $10 on the Irish minus 14. And hey, if it doesn't cash, I'll never bet on ND again. The next big game has some major Big 12 title game implications when number 14 BYU visits number 21 Arizona State. For the Cougars, the path is simple. Win the next 2 and you're in. The Sun Devils, on the other hand, don't control their own destiny and need to win out. Plus, we'll need some other help down the stretch. All this to say, BYU are frauds. As a St. Louis Cardinals fan, I know when there's no more magical pixie dust left and when the glass slipper has shattered. It's been an excellent run for the Cougs, but they are liabilities on the ground, and that's where ASU makes its money. This is only the second time in the last 10 years that Arizona State is a betting favorite against a ranked opponent. So I'm putting $10 of my money on the Sun Devils minus 3 and the Sparky helmets to shine. Now for the big kahuna. Number 2 Ohio State, and I can't believe I'm saying this, folks, against 5th-ranked Indiana. Boy, that feels nice to say. I'm not going to beat around the bush, so let's move the desk out of here real quick. Because I can't stand here in the cream and crimson candy stripers and not bet on my beloved Hoosiers. Now, before you pause or close this YouTube video, let me take you through my logic for why the Hoosiers will cover against the Buckeyes. First off, remember that iconic quote from the 1986 movie Hoosiers? The court's the same size, the hoop's the same height. It's a reminder that when it comes down to it, that's what the game's about. Heart and execution. Not about strength of schedule, it's not about national prowess, and it doesn't matter if people believe you're overrated in the rankings or not. Those people are, in one word, daunted. And I got some news for you. The shoe is still 120 yards long, and the goalpost is still 30 feet high. And the Hoosiers, well, Google them. They win and are never daunted. Kurt Cignetti said it on his second day as head coach of the Hoosiers. His squad would be playing in Indianapolis, and he's just one small step away from making that a reality. I don't think the Buckeyes have what it takes to put out the smoke on the Sig 10. So give me the points and $10 for IU and for Ryan Day to learn who's your daddy. Let's see what the C-suite is cooking up for this week, though. Well, by the picture the C-suite gave me, it seems as if they're sleeping on Notre Dame -14 and Arizona State -3. But the good news is, I'm proud to say the producers here are not daunted. They're also back in the Hoosiers, plus 11.5. That's what I like to see. And I was pretty tired in that picture, just for reference. All right, now time for my best bets of the week. I've been trying to do my part to combat SEC bias when it comes to college football playoff discussions, but some of these Week 13 matchups are a crime against humanity and simply too good not to bet on. We'll begin in the slaughterhouse, that is Sanford Stadium, when UMass comes to town. To put this in Athens terms, once you get the white base coat, then you get the red going, then you get the black going, that's the Dogs. And Kirby Smart's going to have anything but a leash on his guys for their final tune-up game. I think UGA gets over 55.5 by themselves in this game. So that's $10 for you. And because I'm a sicko, give me the Dogs to shut out the Minutemen. Might be ambitious, but it's either bet big or go the house. We'll just put $5 on that side bet for safe measures though. Now over to two more SEC squads who were merchants of blowing out much weaker competition a week ago. Number 15, Texas A&M at Auburn. Lots of the discussion this week has been on Mike Elko and the Aggies potentially overlooking the slumping Tigers. Personally, I don't buy into it at all, because the Ags are still playing for the playoffs, potentially even the SEC championship game, whereas Auburn is just trying to squeak into a bowl game and get to the finish line without a fourth straight losing season. Give me a gig 'em and give me $10 more on the fighting Texas A&M Aggies to cover -2.5 on the road. Staying in the conference that surely deserves to have 8 teams in the top 25, even though they all scheduled cupcake opponents in the penultimate week of the season, number 3 Texas faces another sub-500 opponent in Kentucky. That's what the lamestream media doesn't tell you, folks. All their attention is on the Hoosiers, when the real focus should be on the fact that Texas is a top 3 team, but their best win is against an unranked Vanderbilt team by a field goal. While the Wildcats are still in the midst of a disappointing season, they've done oddly well against the upper echelon teams, with a win over Ole Miss, plus a 1-point loss to Georgia and a 10-point loss to Tennessee. What that means is I got $10 on the Cats to cover 20.5 against the Longhorns. We'll go back to the Big 12 for my next bet, but one of the greatest stories in college football this season, when number 15 Colorado visits one of the hottest teams in the sport in Kansas. It's the first time the old Big 8 rivals have faced since 2010. And for reference, just 3 months after that game, Deion Sanders was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now he's inching closer and closer to the college football playoff. Coach Prime can chalk up the Jayhawks as a win, because I've got $10 on the Buffaloes -2.5. For my big games, I ended with a sentimental pick, so only fitting for my final best bet, the battle for bowl eligibility in our great producer Arnold Pokerl's home state of Nebraska, when the Cornhuskers host Wisconsin. I love Arnold like a brother, I really do. But my sister is currently a baby Badger at Madison, another word for a freshman. And in a year where Syracuse potentially has a chance to play the Badgers in the postseason, I have to put $5 on Wisconsin to cover 3.5 in Lincoln. Consider this your Christmas present, Megan. Maybe use my winnings to help pay to get your school a decent quarterback. For my future pick, I really wanted to represent my hometown of St. Louis by picking one of my own teams to win. But the issue is that would result in as much success as the Cardinals and Blues have had over the last 2 seasons, which is slim to none. The good news is, just about 300 miles east of the Mississippi River, the pastures aren't any greener in Chicago. And in the case of the Chicago Blackhawks, the ice isn't any smoother. Besides Connor Bedard being the lone bright spot, the Hawks lost a franchise record 54 games a season ago and got off to a terrible start this year as well. Chicago currently sits dead last in the NHL in points, which is where I expect them to stay anchored the rest of the year. This team has shown an inability to score, zero leadership, and are nowhere close to relevancy, which is why I'm putting $5 on the Blackhawks to finish in the basement of the NHL with a league worst record. Compared to the rest of my fellow hosts, I feel as if this future is a pretty realistic prediction on a list that could be described as delusional at first glance. Let's go down in order, shall we? Now, what they won't tell you is Jake Morrell's first 2 futures aren't on here. Caleb Williams' passing yards record as a rookie, and also for the Bears to win the Super Bowl. I mean, those are just terrible. Skylar Wilkes and Andrew Selliver, maybe those started as good picks, but it's a shame the Sun Devils are going to ruin Andrew's picks and put that pipe dream to sleep. Tyler Aiken, hate to break it to you, the Bills' Super Bowl was actually beating the Chiefs in the regular season. season. So if that's what really matters, and Sean McDermott, because he can't win a big game, I think he should just cash out now. Ian Nicholas obviously lost. Austin Barrick probably has one of the best picks on here, as much as I hate to say it, although those Chiefs fans are so insufferable. Shrikar Rajendran, I'm so sorry. Your pick is wrong because Sean Dempsey's pick exists. Jordan Leonard, I don't even know where East Brunswick is. Carson Fowler obviously didn't get the news that the Indiana Hoosiers are also playing in Atlantis, which leads me to, I think, probably the best pick on this list. Chloe Smars, I'm sorry about anything bad I said about you earlier. She is not daunted. Great job picking Indiana to be undefeated. And then, of course, me sliding right under there, kind of a D1 hater pick with Chicago to finish worst in the NHL. All right, with those future bets, now it's time for my parlay. I promise no more Hoosier propaganda for my 3-leg parlay. And what's a better place to start than the Fun Belt? 8-2 Louisiana up against 3-7 Troy. The record discrepancy alone is really all you need to hear. But just in case you want to hear some stats I read on Google 10 hours ago, Troy's defense is terrible. It allows nearly 30 points and nearly 400 yards a game. Their starting quarterback, Goose Crowder, who should definitely be first-team All-Name, has been out with injury since September, so there's no hope on offense for the Trojans either. Should fare well for a Raging Cajuns crew that have averaged over 30 points and over 450 yards per game. I'll take Louisiana minus 9.5 for leg 1. For leg 2, I've got South Carolina, who sits at number 18 in the country, when it hosts Wofford on its senior day. There's no doubt the Gamecocks are going to glide to a 5-game win streak because I don't even know where Wofford is or what its mascot is, but what I do know is that I'm frothing at the mouth at that 49.5 point over-under mark. Similar to Georgia, I think South Carolina should cover that itself. Hopefully including this in my parlay is enough to make that game at least somewhat watchable. So my final leg, let's give the Conference USA some love, because Jacksonville State and Sam Houston State could be pivotal in alerting the makeup of the conference championship game. I don't necessarily trust one side or the other to cover, but what I do trust is that this is going to be a scoring slugfest, which means free points, which in turn means free money. Last year's matchup between these two smashed the predicted 56-point line. So I've also got the Bearcats and Gamecocks to beating up on the over at 56.5. That's $15 to win just over 90, which, if these other picks pan out, could propel me well into the Beat the Bookie semester lead. Take a look at these great retro logos one last time, and after you take a gander at those, let's finish off with the recap of my picks. For my big games, I got Notre Dame minus 14 against Army, Arizona State minus 3 against BYU, and your Indiana Hoosiers plus 11.5 against Ohio State. For my best bets, give me the Georgia over plus the dogs to shut out UMass. I've also got Texas A&M minus 2.5 at Auburn. I got Kentucky covering against Texas plus 20.5, Colorado covering against Kansas minus 2.5, and Wisconsin covering plus 3.5 against Nebraska. And my future, I have the Blackhawks finishing with the worst record in the NHL. And for my parlay, we've got Louisiana minus 9.5. We've got South Carolina and Wofford over 49.5 points, in addition to Sam Houston State and Jacksonville State over 56.5. That about puts a bow tie on this episode of Beat the Bookie. I want to give a big thanks to our producers, Jordan Leonard and Arnav Pokrel. Enjoy your college football Saturday slate and give me the Hoosiers by a billion.